You guys like my new reading chair? This was one of my Christmas presents and I have not left it since I got it. At my core, I am a layer, whether it's in my bed, on the floor. I like to lay. However, now I may be a sitter. When I try and read in bed, I usually end up falling asleep. So hopefully this fixes that issue. Anyways, welcome to 2024. That feels so weird to say. Usually I am not one for the new year. I normally find this time of the year quite depressing. You know, Christmas is over. There's that slight creeping feeling of existential dread due to the unstoppable passage of time. But this year I'm feeling pretty good. Before we completely move on to 2024, I wanted to do a little recap of my year of reading, my top 10 books of 2023. These are my favorite books, the most meaningful books, my most memorable books. These are the 10 books that I feel like would most accurately define 2023. Now, these are in no particular order, and I honestly picked them all for very different reasons, but starting out so extremely strong, I have Bunny by Miss Mona Awad. This is one of, if not the book that I feel like defined 2023 for me, because I first read this all the way back in January, almost a complete year ago, and I quite literally have not stopped thinking about it since. I thought about it literally all year long. I read it in one day. I made a Pinterest board about it. I made a playlist about it. That is how you know I am so truly into a book. Mona Awad writes a very, very specific type of book, and you either love it or you hate it. They're very surreal, fever dream. You're not quite sure if you actually know what's going on. And one thing Miss Mona Awad is going to do is she is going to write a deranged woman. And I love that. This book specifically is about a girl named Sam. She's in a writing program at a selective liberal arts school, and she gets sucked into this group of girls who all refer to each other as Bunny. It's dark, it's twisted, it's girly and deranged, but in the best way possible. And it just made me want to be a part of a psychotic girl group. Is that too much to ask? Another one of my all-time favorites this year that I also read pretty early on into the year was The Devil All the Time by Donald Ray Pollock. I gave this book to my dad to read and he simply never gave it back to me, and now I can't find it. So, Dad, I want it back. But I first saw of this as the Netflix movie on Netflix. The Netflix movie on Netflix, in case you didn't know where. The movie that came out on Netflix a couple of years ago, but I watched that, I really liked it, and I had no idea it was a book. So when I saw that it was a book, I knew I had to read it immediately. This is another dark one. It's very heavy, very disturbing, but if you A, like stuff like that, and B, you can handle it, then I 100% recommend this book. This takes place post World War II in rural Ohio and West Virginia. And yes, initial impression, that concept sounds absolutely so boring to me. But if you think about this book in an Ethel Cain type of way, it literally changes everything. This was also my year of Ethel Cain. I discovered her for myself in March, and she was one of my top artists this year. If you don't know who Ethel Cain is, first of all, what are you doing? Second of all, go listen to her, learn the lore. There's a whole backstory, there's lore, understand the aesthetic, and then apply it to this book, and you will completely understand what I am talking about and where I'm coming from. Ethel Cain rant over. I do not know how to describe this book beyond that. It follows several different storylines of several different characters or groups of characters, but they all end up converging with each other in one way or another, and that just, my brain loves that. I feel like I cannot make this video essentially talking about my reading highlights of 2023 without talking about this book, and that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This was literally the start of my entire YouTube channel. My very first video was a Little Life reading vlog, and it was slightly traumatizing. But if you're gonna say one thing about me, you can say that I came in with a bang. I'm not gonna talk a whole lot more about this because, you know, it's A Little Life, but I just had to mention it. Not because it's my absolute favorite book. If this is your favorite book, please reach out to a loved one. But reading a book like this it takes a little piece out of you, and it will always be the very first book that I made a video about. Also, the quote, "You have to give them a little life, Jude," haunts me in my sleep. Another one of my favorites this year was Big Swiss by Jen Began. I was so pleasantly surprised with how much I liked this book. This is literary fiction, one of those weird books for weird girls. One of my favorite little subgenres that I've really gotten into this past year. This is about a woman named Greta. She works as a transcriptionist for a sex therapist. So she gets to listen into this therapist's sessions with all of his clients, and she ends up becoming obsessed with one client in particular that she nicknames Big Swiss. She only knows her by her voice, and then one day she meets her out in public, recognizes her voice, and then they kind of go from there. The best words to describe this book are goofy and messy. The premise of this book, goofy. The characters, messy, but so good. It was genuinely so entertaining. It was funny. It gave me a good little chuckle many a times. But there are some more serious themes in this as well, like morals, ethics, mental health, the different ways that people deal with trauma. I just love the way that Jen Began wrote this. This is another one of those books where it's like, if you get it, you're gonna love it. And if you don't get it, you're probably gonna hate it. I think it's a masterpiece. 2023 was also my Fleabag year. I watched the show for the first time a couple of months ago. I've watched it very many times since then. And yes, I am being dramatic, but that show changed my life. It is a spiritual experience. And that is why when I saw this, I knew I simply had to have it. If you haven't read the title yet, you may think I'm holding up a Bible. And I pretty much am, except for this is actually the script of the entire show. This is the exact same thing as watching it on the TV, except with a little more context because all of the little like nonverbal actions are written out, like all of her glances at the camera. It is just my goal to consume as much content about that show as I possibly can. And this is a prized possession. I've tabbed some of my favorite scenes, some of my favorite lines from the show. Trauma. You see that? Do you see that? If you take anything from watching this video, yes, one, it's go read all of these books, but mainly go watch Fleabag and go listen to Ethel Cain. Can you tell that I'm like leaning towards the sunshine? Like a plant. Like this, we don't like. This. I could just move my chair, but are these shadows annoying? I like to use natural lighting to film my videos, and the windows of my room are on like the front of my room. So I don't know if there's a place in my room where like this wouldn't happen. Are they annoying? Are you mad at me? Just let me know. So one of my other top books of the year was actually a reread, and honestly I think has become one of my favorite books of all time, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I will defend this book until the day that I die. If this book has no fans, I am dead. I read this book for the first time a couple of years ago and I liked it, but I didn't necessarily feel super strongly about it. However, this past year, I had some random urge to reread it, and I'm so happy that I did. I don't know if I just matured since the first time that I read this book, but I feel like I just appreciated it so much more and I got so much more out of it the second time around. I tabbed so many different quotes in it. This is some of my favorite writing, and honestly, it's a lot of other people's favorite too. I'm not reinventing the wheel with this choice. This book is insanely popular, and it has been insanely popular. Like, this book has stood the test of time, but that's all okay. Don't be ashamed to like popular things, because I used to be that person. I used to be that person that wanted to be different, and that was annoying. So I'm just saying, if one day I get to heaven and God looks at me and says, he asks me, what are your top 10 books of all time? For whatever reason, I'm fairly certain that this book would be mentioned. Now, these next couple of books I'm going to talk about are also some very popular ones. Actually, let's be real. There's not a book on this list that's not extremely popular, but I'll get to that later. My next favorite was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Again, this has been an extremely popular book. I just, for some reason, never really had any interest in it. And this is a recurring theme for me. I will see certain books or know of certain books and just decide, based on nothing, that I don't have interest in them. And then out of nowhere, I get some random inspiration to look into the book or pick the book up, and it ends up becoming like one of my top books, one of my like 5-star reads. So maybe going into the new year, I need to reassess my judgment. Seems like a lot of work though. But I just loved this. I loved the historical aspect, which, another side note, one thing I've been noticing as I'm aging, as I'm coming into my old age, I'm getting so much more interested in history. Like, all of those topics that I never really cared about in school, I now find myself looking up on my own for fun. So maybe this year, 2024, is my year of historical fiction. I just opened this up and read a random quote. I see someone who cares, perhaps too much, who feels too much, the kind of person who feels like they're wasting away in a world full of food because they can't decide what they want. This was my first V.E. Schwab book, The writing, immaculate. I just thought it was so unique, and I really need to read more V.E. Schwab. Ugh, I need to stop. Now, kind of in the same vein as like my little history kick, I have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Let my sister borrow it, so I don't have it. Now you may be thinking, sis, that's not a history book. And to that I say, yes, I know. This is fantasy. It's about a girl named Rin, and she gets into this very like prestigious elite military school. There's war, obviously, but there are also gods and like ancient power. And normally that kind of stuff doesn't usually jazz me, but R.F. Kuang's writing is just so immaculate. Like, I would read the Bible if she rewrote it. This was just so much more than I was expecting it to be. It was honestly so impactful in a way that I did not expect. There are a couple chapters in this book where Miss Rebecca did not hold back. And I do make the history connection with this because so much of it is based on Asian history, historical conflicts between China and Japan. Like, there's just so much to it that I will never be able to like accurately and intelligently explain to you. And now I made this point in the original video where I read this book, but you cannot read about all of the awful, terrible events and effects of war and genocide and destruction, and one, not make the historical connections, and two, not realize that this is exactly what's happening to Palestinian people in Gaza. And I'm just bringing that up now to say, don't forget, don't stop doing your research, don't stop educating yourself, and don't stop talking about it. Where were we? I think that was number 8. So number 9 is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Malore. This is another one that really surprised me by how much I liked it. I feel like this book got very split reviews. People either really loved this book or they hated it and thought it was really boring. This is literary fiction. This is no plot, just vibes. The encounter of our two main characters, how they affect each other's lives, and honestly the lives of all of the other little side characters, because they're also like heavily mentioned in this book. Just beautiful writing in my opinion. Like, that is what makes a book like this. I loved Cleo. I loved her character as a young girl in my 20s. This is also one of those books where I picked it up for the cover and I stayed for the writing. I think Coco Malores also has a new book coming out in June this year about sisterhood. Also very excited for that. Last but definitely not least, I have what may be my favorite book of the entire year. I didn't officially pick one, but if I did, I think it would be this. This is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. I still feel like I don't even have the words to describe this book. I had some big feelings while reading this book, big feelings that I do not know how to articulate. But this is about a little girl named Betty coming of age in like the southern foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's just all about what goes on inside of her family as well as what she faces outside of her family. It's about racism, sexism, trauma, abuse, generational trauma, religious trauma, familial mental illness, literally everything awful, but it is genuinely one of the best books I've ever read. Betty, the main character, the little girl, is also based off of Tiffany McDaniel's own mother and her mother's childhood. This book just has my heart. Like, this book gives me feelings that I cannot put into words. Like, I just feel it. I just feel it right here. I just wish that everyone would read this book, but at the same time, this is not a book for everybody. It is so trauma heavy, and honestly, every trigger you can think of is probably in this book, but it is so beautifully written, and I really do think it's worth it if you can and do give it a shot. Also, her father, one of my favorite characters I've ever read. We're going to ignore the amount of times I've moved my chair in order to stay in the direct sunlight. But those were my top 10 favorite books that I've read in the year of 2023. And now I just want to have a little chat about some of the reading goals I've set for myself going into 2024. First of all, I did set my reading goal to 100 books again. Is that gonna happen? Probably not. That was my goal for 2023. I did not make it, but I'm gonna keep trying. That is my own personal goal. I'm looking at it as something to work towards rather than something I absolutely must obtain. The amount of books that you choose to read in a year or that you are able to read in a year is so personal to you. Please do not compare yourself to other people, because I've done that a little bit. This past year, I will look at other people who have read like 150, 200, 250 books, and I'm just like, how? How are you able to do that? But everyone's different. If your goal is to read 5 books in a year, that's amazing. 10 books in a year, amazing. Who cares? Second, I really want to work on not just like, okay, I guess we're gonna have a buddy for the rest of the video. But I really want to work on not regurgitating all of the same stuff that I see on social media, all of the same stuff that I see like elsewhere on BookTube or BookTok or Bookstagram. If I have a difference of opinion on a really popular book or just a really popular topic, I want to work on having the confidence to actually say so and voice that. I don't want to just repeat all of the same stuff that I'm seeing other people say. I'm having this fear lately that nothing I do is original. Do you know when you go on TikTok and someone says something and then there are all these comments that are like, I've never had an original thought in my life. I've never had an original experience in my life. I am so scared that's happening to me. And this does kind of go hand in hand with another goal of mine, but I really just want to work on like not talking about all of the same stuff that everyone else is talking about. But at the same time, I am just a girl and I do like a lot of the same stuff that my fellow girlies like, and there's nothing wrong with that either. My point is, I just want to make sure that I'm not following a trend or following what's popular just for the sake of following it and not because I actually want to. And I'm still probably going to talk about popular books because I read a lot of popular books. I also just want to make sure that I am balancing out a little bit more with newer books or more original books that I may have seen just like walking around the store and picking up, not because I saw it on social media. Now this next one might be slightly contradictory to what I just said because this idea is one that I have seen other people talking about, and that is not doing star ratings for books anymore. And I kind of love that idea. It has always just been something that I overthink way too much. And for what reason? There isn't one. I end up thinking more about the star rating than how I actually feel about the book. And I feel like it's way better anyway to sit down and talk about what a book made me feel. Did I like it? Did I not like it? Did I like it for this reason? Did I dislike it for this reason? Which is already what I basically do. But I feel like to then try to summarize all of that and like fit it into a basic star rating, it just defeats the purpose. It defeats everything that I just talked about because you're going to remember the star rating. And then my last kind of like goal is just to put everything I possibly can into this. I want to grow. I want to make more. Honestly, making the decision to start my channel in 2023 has truly just made me so happy. I've always been a reader my entire life, but this past year I've really like become so much more immersed in the book community. I've consumed so much more book content. I've discovered so many new books and so many new authors that I otherwise probably wouldn't have, and it's all because I decided to do this. And let me tell you, if this is something you think you'd want to do too, just do it. If you're thinking about starting a book channel, if you want to post on TikTok, if you want to start a book Instagram account, do it. This is something that I wanted to do for such a long time. I held myself back and I questioned myself for so long, just thinking about what other people would think of me. Would people make fun of me? All of those stupid little things. And honestly, I'm so glad I decided to not listen to myself for once. And I'm telling you, don't let those things hold you back either. Because this is one decision I can say that I'm truly just so happy about. I'm so thankful for all of my besties on here, for anyone who watches me or who enjoys my videos. You actually mean the world to me, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm just saying, if I can get on here and do this, you can too. Again, I love you guys. I'm so thankful for you guys. Let me know what kind of videos you want to see in 2024, what some of your goals are. I want to hear them. But thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.